What if Metagross was in Gen 1 Ubers? I've gone over Metagross in the past, and he was one of the main Pokemon, if not the main Pokemon, for Generation Jumble Season 1. And not counting some of the crazy Ubers mons like Slacking, or Arceus, or Regigigas, Metagross genuinely might be one of, if not the strongest Pokemon I've ever covered. Even without a signature, it is very hard to think of anything that could even come remotely close to him. Even Pokemon with amazing typings, with immunities, such as Dragapult with a normal immunity and an electric resistance. You have various different dark types, like King Gambit, with the steel and dark typing, immune to psychic, resistant to normal and ice. But despite all of that, Metagross, I think, has the best typing. Steel and Fairy might be good in modern gens, but Steel Psychic is so stupidly good in Gen 1, it is not even funny. You have a resistance to both normal and ice, which is already good, but then you have just 2 resistances to Psychic, so with a quad resistance in a gen where you have max special defense and max HP, Psychic is doing such little damage to you that it might as well be a immunity. And then with 130% defense, Explosion is never a big deal to you, and 90 special defense is extremely close to Jinx's 95 special, so you're just really tanking the special side as well. So long with you resisting everything, you just have like tanky stats for it as well, so nothing is really hurting you. There's things like Fire and Groundy to worry about, but not only can Metagross tank those, but it's good with screens. And along with that, base 80 HP is pretty good for the time, and base 70. It has the best defensive typing, it has perfect stats for a defensive Pokemon, but also has offensive stats, because 95 special attack is the exact same as Jinx, so you just hit as hard as Jinx would stab Psychic, which Metagross obviously has, and has stab on. But you have Cloyster's speed at 70, you outspeed Chansey, Snorlax, Rhydon, Slowbro, Executor. Why? Why do you need to outspeed any of those? That's ridiculous. And we'll talk about more of those later, but we have 3 Metagrosses here in the team builder, and that's because there are 12 different moves you can give your Metagross that are insanely good. Like I said, Psychic is stab, so that's just really good for the time. Because of how tanky it is, Rest is great, just giving you some time to heal. And then Explosion. Gen 1 Explosion with the 135 attack Pokemon, are you kidding me? You better believe Explosion just nukes basically everything. Obviously it doesn't OHKO the entire tier, but I mean OHKO in like the most literal sense. Most of the things that can survive will be left in the red HP at like 7 to 9%. In other words, with literally any chip damage, Metagross here can kill everything in the format. And we have a new move to talk about. I didn't go over this for when I did Metagross in Gen 1 OU, but it didn't matter because of how absurdly broken it is. But Meteor Mash. Same accuracy as Fire Blast, that kinda sucks. But it is a 100 base power move with a 20% chance to raise your attack. Yeah, this is really, really good. Like, really good. And it has 16 power points. So it's not even like you're rolling power points. You can use this a lot. And it hits really hard. And being a steel type, it means the only things resisting it would be other Metagrosses. And you'd also have, I guess, the water types and the electric types. Which, unless it's like a Zapdos or Jolteon critting, it doesn't care that much about it. So Meteor Mash just hits everything super hard. And since it's always raising its attack, that makes it even more threatening. And keep in mind, it's Gen 1. Unlike with Psychic and Special, there's not really any ways to lower attack. So once Metagross gets that attack boost, or I guess you're kind of stuck with it either way, since Metagross has Clear Body. But still, just makes it even worse. And this moveset right here, even if it had nothing else to it, would be insane, and there'd be nothing else to really counteract it. But Metagross has so many good moves to where it's incredibly versatile, and that just makes it terrifying. What's up? What else you have? You have Agility. So with Agility, with 70 base speed, you already outspeed everything in the tier. You can just ignore the paralysis speed drop, which, again, you're just a monster defensively. So, like, that's nice, I guess. And then with Meteor Mash and, like, Psychic, that alone allows you to just handle pretty much everything. But then you also have Explosion. So in a worst case scenario, let's say something crits you, and then you are just forced to explode. You're now faster than whatever they have. So unless they switch into Gengar or a Explosion Resist, like Rhydon or your own Metagross, you're just getting free damage in. And then Reflect. Oh my gosh, Reflect. Metagross Reflect is just terrifying. And I can speak from experience from Generation Jumble Season 1. By the way, if you'd like to see how strong Metagross is in action in Gen 1, you should definitely go on the playlist and check out Generation Jumble Season 1, or just the regular Generation Jumble playlist. Metagross is just unkillable. Like, Tauros with a Reflect Up is not doing anything with Earthquake. Nothing is doing anything against Metagross with Earthquake, with Reflect Up. And it has something like Ice Punch if you really want to deal with Rhydon that way. It's basically unbeatable without a crit. And Metagross hits so hard, you can't really fish for crits against it. And even without Meteor Mash, Earthquake was more than enough as a fantastic move. Super effective against Gengar, super effective against Jolteon, super effective against Rhydon, and most importantly, super effective against enemy Metagross. Even though Metagross has Meteor Mash, there's a very good chance you just don't use it all the time, just so you have good physical coverage for other Metagrosses. So that's already just... okay, that's nice. And then you have Light Screen. Light Screen could be a tech option, because this definitely happened in Generation Jumble Season 1. It'll probably happen in Season 4, where a whole bunch of Pokemon, most notably Tauros, were forced to adapt their movesets and almost exclusively need to have Fire Blast, just so they can handle Metagross better. So having Light Screen could be a way for you to just mitigate that a little bit, and do even less damage. You're probably never going to need to use Body Slam, because with just how good you are, you just don't need the paralysis. But the fact that you have the option is just really great. Thunder Punch is just Ice Punch, but kind of worse. And even Ice Punch I don't think will be used that much. But the fact that you have super effective coverage against water types is pretty nice. And Rock Slide is mostly just for coverage against Zapdos. But Zapdos is a Pokemon that you don't usually hit super hard with, unless you're using Psychic or something. So the coverage is always nice. And of course, you have Hyper Beam. But you don't really need Hyper Beam when you're hitting so hard and have Explosion. So actually, wait, that's like 13 moves, isn't it? 13 usable moves for a Pokemon that would have been too much for OU just by itself or anything. If it was just these stats on a different Pokemon, it would be too much. If it was just a Steel Psychic with a higher base stat total than Klefki, it would have been banned. If you had a versatile move pool like this, it might not have been banned, but it probably would have been banned. It is just way too much for OU. And how does it do in Ubers? Well, Sword Stance Mew could be a problem, but with the setup, not only can Metagross do serious damage to Mew, especially with something like an attack boost from Meteor Mash, but then with Explosion, it can just take care of Mew anytime it wants. Or, with Reflect, Metagross just kind of wins against Mew. Like, what exactly do you do there? And then Mewtwo. Oh my gosh, Mewtwo. Mewtwo is definitely not setting up Amnesias in front of Metagross. If it's Thunderbolt, you're going to need to set up at least one Amnesia before you can two-shot Metagross. And at that point, Metagross is probably killing you with or without Explosion. Ice Beam, Metagross doesn't care about. Psychic, Metagross really doesn't care about. So what this means is that, just like Tauros, Mewtwo would be forced to use Fire Blast just to deal with Metagross. And even with that scenario, once the Metagross catches on to that, it can use Light Screen to try to mitigate that, or it can go straight for Explosion. Even if Metagross gets burned, it's going to do a lot of damage with Explosion. So overall, an absolute monster that even Mewtwo needs to fear, and it'll need to adapt its moveset just for that. So, I think I've already made my point pretty clear on why Metagross is the strongest Pokemon I've ever covered, relatively speaking. Not counting something like Slacking, which just, let's be real, is just kind of cheating. And by the way, if you're curious to play with Metagross yourself, I host tournaments that are based on my what-if scenarios during my Discord server, so definitely join that. Along with Metagross, we're going to have a bunch of other Pokemon from Hoenn joining Gen 1 Ubers. We're going to have Blaziken, Sceptile, and Swampert, and we're also going to have the Regis, as well as the Creation Trio. Not Creation Trio, I mean the Weather Trio. So yeah, we have like Groudon, Kyogre, Rayquaza, Regigigas, Regice, and Registeel. All the Pokemon will have their respective signature moves, including Metagross here. It should be a lot of fun. Please consider joining. But for now, let's get on to the replays, shall we? Starting off with the King of Ubers himself, Mewtwo. You could try to go for Amnesia, but without a... what's it called? Without any boost, you need a 2 KO. And with just one attack boost, already, Metagross can 2-shot Mewtwo. Now granted, I will say that the accuracy of Meteor Mash is going to cause a lot of rage. And Mewtwo, with this format, I feel like can't really afford to run Ice Beam. Because along with Metagross, you also have Regice, and you have Registeel, and you even have, like, Kyogre. But at the same time, Rayquaza and Groudon are also here. So Mewtwo is actually gonna struggle a little bit for Season 4, which I think is interesting. And like I said, Mewtwo will have to run exclusively Fire Blast, which luckily does more than enough damage. But yeah, it's still not the best situation to be in. But with Fire Blast, which will be common, it's enough to where I'll put it in and it could go either way. And then Mew, without Swords Dance, owns as a third. And let's not forget that with a 70 speed, Metagross's crit rate isn't really that bad. So it's just hitting stupidly hard. And even a Mew with base 100 attack, as you see there, is not doing that much with Explosion. So yeah, this is definitely a problem. You can go for Swords Dance, but if Metagross goes for Reflect, it's just going to be a big problem for you. And also with Agility, it can outspeed both Mew and Mewtwo, which is causing even more problems. And even though Metagross is really good and keeps the tier together, if you have to explode on Mewtwo or even Mew, I'm going to say that's a fair trade on your end. But I don't know. Like, we'll have to see how the meta develops from here. But yeah, here's Tauros. And even without Reflect, Earthquake is... yeah, not the... I don't know, I probably would have expected more. Metagross can kill Tauros there. And worst case scenario, even if Tauros ever gets a crit, Metagross can always check going for Explosion. What's the worst that can happen? And there's Fire Blast, doing a little bit more damage. But I think that's really important is more so just Fire Blast getting a burn. But then again, Metagross can do more than enough with just special moves like Psychic. Even without Meteor Mash, Psychic is a fantastic stab for Metagross to have. And Metagross does not seem like a mixed attacker, but it is. I'm going to say that's probably only because it was made in Gen 3, before the physical special split. Let's say they switch Garchomp and Metagross's roles. I'd be willing to bet that Metagross, if it was made in Gen 4, would have significantly lower special attack, and maybe either have higher physical attack, or just that's the only change. Its special attack isn't as high. Let me know what you think in the comments when it comes to that. Here comes Snorlax, but since Snorlax is slower than Metagross, unlike Tauros, Metagross is always going to be able to handle Snorlax. And the stats that Snorlax has doesn't matter too much. And granted, like, Metagross definitely suffers from 4 move sweat syndrome. But I'm gonna say that, I don't know, like, there's definitely certain types of Metagross you're gonna see. Like, for example, physical Metagross with, like, probably Agility, Earthquake, Explosion. Or you're gonna have, like, Mixed Attacking Metagross, or Reflect Metagross, or Rest Metagross. But even with all of those, I feel like each of them can probably handle each type of Snorlax there is. But maybe that's just me being optimistic, but it's hard to tell. And Chansey, oh my gosh. Earthquake was already pretty good against Chansey, but Meteor Mash? This is so sad, but also at the same time so satisfying to watch. That's how much Meteor Mash is doing with Reflect Up. It is doing 42% with an attack boost. I think this alone just proves the point of how strong Metagross truly is. That's just, I don't know, this is just beautiful to watch. Chansey's having to go for Softball and pray for a freeze or a miss. And so far, that's not going too well for it. Well, man, look at that. Like, that was 60%. That's just insane. And I think I love Metagross so much. I always thought Metagross was pretty cool, but I think my experiences with Metagross in Generation Jumble have genuinely made it one of my favorite Pokemon of all time. And yeah, there's just a crit, which is Oko's Chansey entirely. And if this was a replay with other Pokemon, this is a stupidly high attack of Metagross with an insane amount of attack, and just with Agility, it outspeeds everything. There's only 5 Meteor Mash power points left, but I don't think that matters. I'm pretty sure Metagross just kills everything. Like, I'm not like, Zapdos might be able to tank a Meteor Mash, but even then, with how high Metagross' attack is, Zapdos is taking a crap ton of damage. So I don't know. And here's Alakazam, not doing much better. In fact, I'm gonna say it would do even worse than Chansey. But maybe I'm just crazy, but probably not. It doesn't matter too much though, because Metagross just beats both of them like about the same basically. I guess Cloyster could go for Clamp, but since Metagross has a speed tie, it means Clamp isn't even super consistent. And since Metagross always runs Agility a lot, that means that Cloyster will never continue to be faster. And once that happens, what does Cloyster even do? A lot of time Metagross also has Rest. Also, for anyone curious, I'm pretty sure Psychic not only does more damage than Thunder Punch, but also with Stab, and more importantly just lowering Special. I think it's just overall a more effective way of dealing with Cloyster. I suppose Cloyster could do better against only physical Metagross sets, but not only is Metagross' Explosion going to be way more powerful than Cloyster's Explosion, but also Cloyster itself would just really struggle in Ubers, and Metagross existing inherently makes the Explosion spam that Gen 1 Ubers is known for less effective. So that's already something that's going to hurt Cloyster, and it kind of means that Cloyster, it wouldn't even be a good counter anyways, or even a check. It sucks as being a check. But it could be worse. Does Ice Punch do a lot against Metagross? Absolutely not. But trust me, it doesn't really matter. Metagross can handle Exeggutor very, very easily. And there's nothing Exeggutor can do. It only has Psychic and normal moves. Metagross quad resists Psychic, and with 130 defense, with normal being resisted, Metagross might as well be immune to everything Exeggutor has. It's even resisted the grass, so even Mega Drain isn't doing much. And then with Gengar, honestly with Gengar, just take your pick between killing it with Psychic or killing it with Earthquake. Both are really good at dealing with Gengar. And even crits don't matter too much, since Metagross is either outspeeding you with Agility and it just doesn't care about the low HP, or it's going for Rest and taking all of that HP back. So Gengar is just not cooking. Not at all. And then Jolteon. It can paralyze Metagross. Sure, go ahead for that. You can survive an Earthquake, but then Metagross is just going to go for Agility and ignore that paralysis altogether. So there's nothing that Jolteon can do here. That is another Pokemon absolutely destroyed by Metagross. Alright, let's move on, shall we? We have Jinx. I don't... What's even to say at this point? That was a crit, and that crit only did 15%. That should just show you... Steel Psychic is just... It's so good! It's so stupidly good! It's insane. And here's Rhydon. Technically, Rhydon could beat Metagross if it's using... Or if it's not using Reflect. But even then, special Metagrosses are always gonna just do pretty good here. Especially with a crit or a special shot from Psychic. Even without Reflect, Rhydon can win. But even with Reflect, as you can see, it can still go either way. I wish this could balance Metagross out a little bit. But also, again, it's going to be Ubers. So in Ubers, Rhydon's just not anywhere near as good as OU. So Metagross could just keep running free. And no, don't expect Cloyster and Rhydon to rise up in usage just because Metagross is in Ubers. Because keep in mind, you still have to worry about Mewtwo and Mew. So using something like Rhydon and Cloyster is just going to put you at a huge disadvantage. And just being able to maybe check a certain Metagross set with a certain move pool is not good enough. It's basically just Porygon, but even worse. And here's Slowbro. Slowbro is probably the only thing that can truly 1v1 Metagross at full health. But even then, in the base case scenario, you're just forcing Metagross to go for Explosion, taking you both out. But I will put it in... Could go either way, but maybe you can argue being a bad matchup, but I'm not really sure. Starmie, on the other hand, you cannot really argue. Metagross... Now granted, since Thunder Punch doesn't do that much, it doesn't have any good immediate damage against Starmie. Starmie can handle a non-boosted Earthquake. It can also handle Meteor Mash and Psychic, but also not so much Explosion. So it's still good, but not great since you don't like immediately kill Starmie. And you don't really want to use Meteor Mash on it either, since Starmie, depending on the moveset, can hit decently hard. But, you know, it's definitely something. And here's where Metagross doesn't get Paralysis luck. I'm not sure if like, Surf would be used more. It probably wouldn't be used more, just so it can hit Metagross. But then again, I just don't know if Starmie's even that used in Ubers, now that I think about it. I think I've ironically seen more Cloyster and Alakazam than Starmie. I don't even know why. Actually, no. There's only one reason why I bothered doing a Victory Bell replay. And that's because with my original Metagross video, Victory Bell hadn't yet been in OU. It was still struggling in the lower tiers. So I figured just to give Victory Bell the honor that it technically deserves from like rising to OU, might as well make this. But look at that. Look at all the damage Victory Bell did there. It kinda beat up Metagross a little bit with Razor Leaf. That's a resistant move. So good job, Victory Bell. You deserve a gold medal. Alright, last but not least, we have Zapdos. Just like Swirbo, Zapdos is again one of the few Pokemon that can kind of take on Metagross. But even then, like, I don't even think Metagross really needs to put Rock Slide. Having Rock Slide and Earthquake is just really good coverage. Psychic isn't really doing too much, but again, worst case scenario, you can always go for Explosion. Or whatever you want. Metagross can do whatever the hell it desires, with a fantastic move pool. And that's the thing that makes Metagross really scary as well. The fact that some of the movesets are so different, because the difference between Metagross sweeping you with Agility or outlasting you with Rest is truly night and day. So, Metagross is easily one of the best Pokemon Ubers. In fact, I'm going to say it's even better than Mew. I think being better than Mewtwo is a little bit too much of a tall order to ask. Especially when Mewtwo will always adapt and start running Fire Blast. But still, like, I think being better than Mew is a pretty damn good accomplishment. Now granted, I do not know where Metagross is going to rank in Gen 4, or not Gen 4, Season 4 of Generation Jumble. Because Groudon's going to be there, and Groudon obviously will be a huge threat to Metagross. Not to mention Kyogre will be really annoying, because Kyogre just defensively kind of beats a lot of Metagross's main attacking moves. It'll do good against Regirock and Regice, and maybe Registeel if it has Earthquake. Well, just like in Season 1 Generation Jumble, it's gonna beat Zapdos, or not Sceptile, fine. It'll beat Sceptile, I think Swampert. It probably wasn't a Swampert, but I don't think Swampert will be used that much. Obviously, kind of loses the Blaziken, but Blaziken I think will be niche. So I don't know. I really don't know where Metagross is gonna be. It definitely could be one of the higher tier Pokemon, but the question is how high? I guess we'll find out later. And hopefully you can join Discord server so you can find out yourself. But until next time, this is Groundback, and I look forward to hearing from you.